Hi, my name's Amelia Lyons and I'm a clinical supervisor, trainer and group analyst in an Iron Bevan Health Board. Now today what I'm going to look at is encouraging our other health colleagues to use supervision. So I train on the supervision programme, and we have graduate supervisors who then go out into the organisation and clinically supervise other health professionals and do a fantastic job. Now, sometimes they go into places and they may be asked to go into places where they have to persuade or convince their colleagues that they could make good use of supervision. And so there's already, if you like, a little bit of an atmosphere of resistance around that. So this a small series of very brief videos is meant to help you to think about that and be prepared, get your ducks in a row and be ready with your arguments, everything marshalled in order to be able to, for example, go out and supervise on wards, which can be notorious for resisting any kind of intrusion at all by outsiders. So, in this set of videos, we're going to look at being prepared and the rationale for supervision, and getting ready to supervise and the benefits. We're also going to look at the resistance to using supervision, and then we're going to look at using supervision and helping other people to use supervision. So, getting ready to supervise means having your rationale and your favourite definitions of supervision ready to go. You know, people will say, "Oh, what's that? What do you mean? Don't really understand that." You need to be ready for that. You need to be able to show colleagues how they can use supervision and appreciate that they may be resistant, and we'll come back to that. You also need to be prepared to offer some measured self-disclosure. So you might want to have a few examples ready of how you've used supervision. You want to be a bit careful there because you may not want to overexpose yourself early on with colleagues, especially when you haven't sort of forged that relationship yet. So that's why it's helpful to think about your examples and prepare them rather than giving them the most dramatic event that happened to you in work. And then feeling, did I say a bit too much there? You know, I'm not sure about that. So be prepared in that sense. Consider what your model of supervision is. Now, are you a person-centered supervisor with those attitudes and placing a really high value on compassionate and empathic supervision? Are you a cognitive supervisor where you place quite a high degree of value on thought and where our thoughts can get entrapped? Are you psychoanalytic in style? Do you like to look at history, transference, countertransference, that sort of thing? So think about what you're actually going to be modelling there. Not only what is your model, and have a couple of frameworks ready to play about with, because of course, not every framework will work with everybody. You know, one size never fits all. But also, what are you modelling? What do you consider to be important in supervision and why? So I might say, well, I do consider it's actually essential to build up a really trusting relationship with the supervisee, first and foremost, before we're really going to work productively together. Why do I feel that? I agree with person-centered principles, and I also feel that that applies to me in my own supervision. I really need to trust the person before I'm going to open up to them. That takes a little while. So what are your guiding principles and what needs to be in place as a frame before the conversation even starts? Now, let's have a look then at the rationale and definitions of clinical supervision. So, your arguments. Well, what does it mean to be a professional? Barbara Basso wrote something nice about this in her book on reflective journaling and reflected on that. So, yeah, in health professions, we work autonomously. We're expected to show initiative. We understand our role. We're expected to know when to refer on. We've got, of course, a professional code of practice, and our work isn't straightforward and does involve making judgments where there are no clear right or wrong answers. We aim to improve our practice all the time. And of course, coping with the unpredictable, especially in health, is an absolutely central part of our work. So these things are really crucial. So when we think about the aims then of clinical supervision, we want to make sense of our experience. We want to be able to reflect on it, and we want to learn from it. So again, when somebody says, well, why am I doing supervision? What's the purpose? I can really clearly say, well, our purpose is just to learn from our experience. That's the bottom line for me. I've got no management agenda. I'm not on the management hierarchy. There's nothing that I want to slip in terms of performance management or anything like that. What I want to do is have a sort of mutual learning experience with the supervisee, because I'm always going to learn from them. And I'm hoping that I'm going to set up an environment such that the minute that they begin to reflect on their situations and we get into a conversation, that they'll be able to hear themselves and immediately get a little bit of detachment and then be able to see their practice in a clearer light. That process in itself, without me having to do anything other than to listen to the individual, is going to be sufficient. Obviously, there's more that we can offer, but that is going to be sufficient. So, another definition is about providing a safe and confidential environment to reflect on and discuss our personal and professional responses to work. So, of course, we're going to have, if you like, another way of looking at that I might think about is my emotional and my thinking responses to what's going on in work. And of course, in health professionals, of course, we're going to feel emotional about the work. There are many things that happen that can engage our emotions, serious situations, life or death situations, or situations that are not quite as dramatic as that, but may like chronic life changes, due to chronic conditions, things that are unpleasant surprises for patients, and so on. And also the rewards of working in health, where we do actually see change and we can help some people to recover. So we do have personal and professional responses, and it's important to have a safe place to put them, again, outside of the management hierarchy, so that we're not feeling concerned or worried about what our manager's going to think of us. We need a place to think, if you like, a place and a space to think first. So clinical supervision is not a replacement for management supervision. Sometimes in the organisation as the clinical supervisor trainer, I can get asked to take people for supervision because the manager hasn't got the time, inverted commas, to supervise them. And I have to be really clear that I'm not their management supervisor, that I have no management agenda, and that it may well be appropriate for the person to go back and get the management supervision that they need, either from the manager or from somebody that the manager designates in that capacity. And that is never going to be the clinical supervisor. Sometimes management also have a fantasy that their member of staff coming for supervision is going to moan constantly about them. And whilst that may happen from time to time, most of the time it's not about that, and the supervisor wouldn't get very far, the clinical supervisor, if that's all they did in supervision. So it's a learning experience about professional practice, and hopefully management will see a difference in staff and how they go about their work and their attitude to their work. But it's not going to come about because of some management priority. It has to come from the individual themselves. some fantasy, some individuals turn up in supervision and really need counselling. And so I have to say, when I'm assessing people for supervision, I think the first thing we need to do is refer you to the staff wellbeing area, because that's your most pressing need. Is actually things have overwhelmed you and you've got beyond controlling them professionally, and you need to use some staff wellbeing, some psychology, some counselling, something like that. I think in the past, certainly in the NHS and in nursing, sometimes supervision has been a kind of quite an informal relationship that has become quite friendly. And whilst, of course, there's nothing wrong with becoming friends with your colleagues, that then I think we need to see that if it were there to be a supervision relationship, it needs to be from somebody who isn't your friend. It needs to be somebody slightly outside of your normal work environment, as it were. So another colleague, perhaps from a division that may be separate from yours. It's not advice and it's not problem solving. Again, people can turn up and think, you're my supervisor, give me some advice. That can be extremely tempting to offer, but actually, as part of that clinical supervision process, it's a learning process, and we need to be there to facilitate individuals' learning. So just thinking about the benefits that supervision gives one, and things to have ready to say to colleagues. So it is an opportunity to just debrief, first of all, just to let off steam. It gives a wider perspective on problems. It can give some insight. It can give us some skills and understanding as we begin to think about our work in a different way, perhaps in the context of a group or in a one-to-one setting. So it gives us the chance to reflect on practice, and it can feel quite refreshing and invigorating. And again, in terms of one-to-one and group supervision, it can be restorative in terms of stress. It enhances the ability to reflect on practice. It offers a place of support, a place to network if you're in a supervision group as well. A range of perspectives will come out of working in the group. So often in a large health organisation, it can be really helpful to have supervision groups, because that sort of fosters out of the silo thinking and cross-disciplinary learning, which is incredibly helpful. So I'm going to pause there, and then we're going to look at resistances to supervision. Thank you.